Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, still coming in hot from Argentina. And guys, I'm literally being fully converted by my girlfriend to a full-on Argentine. I'm on the mate train as well. For the listeners at home, if you aren't familiar with mate, highly recommend if you like your caffeine. I friggin' love caffeine. Coffee in the morning is still the play. But in the afternoon, instead of like a morning spro or a cold brew or something, highly recommend the mate. It's a nice bit of a smoother coffee hive, you know what I mean? Less jitters. And I'm hooked. And if you ever come to Argentina, these guys are obsessed with it. They walk around everywhere with it. It's like going to church for them. They have mate all day long. So this is my first episode this year back on the mate train with today's guest, who I'm super pumped to have on, fellow Canadian and one of the GOATs in the Canadian crypto space, Karia Samaroo, on the show today, founder and former CEO and chairman of WonderFi, which is currently being acquired, well, actually already got acquired by Robinhood for 180 million. He now has a startup. I wouldn't even really call it a startup anymore. It's a full-fledged company called xTAO, which is devoted to the decentralized AI network Bittensor, also known as TAO. He's also a former securities lawyer who used his legal expertise to enter crypto in 2016, working with firms like Galaxy Digital before going on to found WonderFi. This one is going to be an absolute treat. I've been waiting for this to happen for a while. Karia, welcome to the show, my friend. Pumped to have you on. How you doing this lovely morning? I guess afternoon now for you too as well.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Doing great. Excited to chat as well.
Let's do it. I want to start with the WonderFi days and crazy. I mean, the sort of the history in crypto of Canada for the folks who aren't fully aware. The world literally owes Canada for how much we've done for the crypto space. Canada's actually done a lot for a lot of different types of tech and innovation, but then everyone good runs away and goes and does a startup in the States, or they go to Dubai or Singapore or Cayman Islands or BVI or Puerto Rico, wherever. But Canada got its start in crypto. Maybe not Bitcoin. No one knows where Bitcoin was fully started, but Ethereum started in Canada, and tons of the best crypto founders, teams, and ecosystems were incubated in our lovely country. Flipping it over to you, mate. Walk us through the founding story of WonderFi, the acquisition of pretty much every single large crypto conglomerate, making that sort of monster under the WonderFi umbrella, Kevin O'Leary jumping on board, and present day, the sale to Robinhood, which is absolutely huge.
Yeah, and before I jump into that, I'll just echo the sentiment that so much great stuff in the crypto space has started in Canada. Even, I mean, Bittensor, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure,
Yeah.
Founders are Canadian. And I even think back to the first public companies in crypto, Galaxy, Hut 8, Hive, all of those listed in Canada to start. And so I think there's such an important place in crypto in Canada, relative to Canada, but tongue twister, yeah, whichever. It goes both ways. But yeah, with WonderFi, when I started that, as you said, I was a securities lawyer earlier in my career, and so was really involved with a lot of different crypto businesses in Canada, trying to launch, get regulated, go to market, and it's just a really complicated regulatory landscape here. And so what I saw was dozens of teams, really great teams, competing, trying to do the exact same thing, competing for the same customers. And so that was an opportunity. And I think it's also difficult to see Canada struggling relative to other, companies in other jurisdictions. So what I wanted to do with WonderFi was create Canadian crypto company that could compete on a global scale. And we really wanted to, initially the plan was grow WonderFi to the largest in Canada and then expand it to other jurisdictions. But obviously there's, the outcome with Robinhood, I think, is, equally as good or better, having such a, global fintech company that's doing so much come in and partner with WonderFi and in this acquisition, I think is really exciting. But the founding story was really just really seeing the opportunity of how much talent and good tech there was in the Canadian space, and just saying, okay, let's lay our stake here, create a really great brand, bring on the best people, the best tech, and let's see what we can do.
Yeah, well said. I mean, having the Robinhood brand as well. Like Robinhood is, I feel like it's one of the few brands in tech that people really have a kinship to. Like people who use Robinhood really love Robinhood. You and I are Canadians. I've never used it myself, but when I've gone to the States, I've used it. I've been on my friends' phones and said, hey, I want to check out the app. I want to see how sticky it is. I want to see what the options trading looks like. They got the credit cards. They have everything now. So the fact that the fact that they came in and acquired WonderFi is great. And it's good to see Robinhood moving and grooving in Canada. I do feel bad. I do think Wealthsimple did a great job. I think the Wealthsimple team is great. But if I was Wealthsimple, I'd be shitting bricks right now, candidly. That's probably not someone you want to compete with in Robinhood.
Yeah,
so
for sure. Probably the one company
yes.
they're worried about, I would agree. And yeah, I
Yes.
agree with you. Wealthsimple team's amazing, great products, and I think they have done an incredible job. But I do think with the also Robinhood's international expansion, so
Yeah.
obviously WonderFi is the Canadian entry point, but moving into Europe and then
Yeah.
really leaning in heavily into integrating crypto and tokenized equities, crypto staking, all these things. I just feel like every time I see more of Robinhood's strategy get unveiled, the more I just think that, wow, this is, I need to own more Robinhood stock.
Yeah, well said. They're very good at skating, at being to where the puck is going before it goes. They're extremely good at
Absolutely.
spotting trends. Speaking of trends, you yourself are very good at spotting trends. You're early to crypto. You built a huge company in crypto, the biggest one in Canada. And now we're moving into the AI game. Before we get into xTAO, which I'm a big fan of, I love what you guys do. Let's talk about AI. And you can sort of tie in decentralized AI as well. The sort of narrative that AI is the next big thing. It's not even really a narrative anymore. Like, it's here where everyone is fully cognizant of it. Everyone fully gets it. Give us your TLDR, your 2 cents, your elevator pitch on AI, and then we'll tie it into xTAO. We'll tie it into TAO, Bittensor, and of course, decentralized AI as well.
Sure. So for me, after WonderFi, I was, looking for what's next, and impossible to ignore everything that's going on with AI. I was just playing around with different products, talking to different founders, and it became very clear that this is the most powerful tool that humanity will ever create. And that was my sense the, first few months I was really deep diving in it. I feel like it grows the more, the deeper down the rabbit hole you go. So I had this elation, excitement, sort of the more that I was exploring and thinking, wow, this is what an incredible time we're at in human history. And then it started to turn for me where I thought, okay, this is the most powerful tool, and there's like 3 companies that own and control it, and I am so locked into one of them that it knows everything about me. Knows everything about my business. It
Spooky.
knows everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, people use ChatGPT for therapy. You use it for your health investigation, like all these things. And that is a disaster waiting to happen. I think we've seen it in other industries. I think one that I always think about is the kind of consumer genetics, like 23andMe, that world where we're giving this, extremely personal, private information, and it's in the hands of one company that, can be flawed. And that's what we've seen happen there. And obviously with social media and, companies like Meta, et cetera, I don't need to explain that, but I just think that the gravity of what we're facing with a few companies being able to control access to AI and being able to control, censorship, impose these biases, and be able to determine in their own discretion how much transparency and accountability there is a huge problem. And yeah, so that's kind of my entry point to AI. And then as I was investigating how to try and solve this problem, I came across Bittensor, and I thought, oh, somebody's already solving it. And that was the start of that.
Okay, let's jump into Bittensor. Give us the elevator pitch. Why is it so powerful? Why is decentralized AI so incredible? Talk about the subnets. Give us just sort of a TLDR, the elevator pitch, and the Coles notes, the Spark notes for the folks who aren't aware of Bittensor. And guys, if you are not aware of Bittensor, do go check out Bittensor. As always, I let all of you know when I hold someone's stock or crypto when they come on the show. I do not hold any xTAO, candidly, but I do hold Bittensor, and that is not why Karia is on the show today. He's on the show because he is one of the GOATs in crypto in Canada. He runs an incredible company in xTAO, and he knows Bittensor and decentralized AI very well. That's why he's on the show. But just so everyone knows, I do hold Bittensor, and I agree with Karia. I think it is still an incredible investment at this day, and we have the halving coming up as well. So I'll flip the ball back over to your core. Tell us about Bittensor, tell us about TAO, and why the subnets and the decentralized AI aspect is so bloody powerful.
Love that you're a TAO holder. And yeah, I feel like it's very early in the evolution of Bittensor. For me, it really was, again, the problem, like, why does this network exist? And so we talked about the centralized AI catastrophic risk. I think that's the key of kind of entry point. Similar to Bitcoin, why does Bitcoin exist? Having centralized control over money, we have seen time and time again, is a huge problem. I think that the tool of AI is more important and larger scale than money, because intelligence really is at the core of everything we do as humans. And so I think the problem is a lot bigger than the problem that Bitcoin is addressing, which is not to talk down on Bitcoin, but I think just when you look at the kind of addressable market or the problem that it's solving, it is inherently larger problem. And I love Bittensor because it really starts with that Bitcoin philosophy of really the same philosophical roots. Like, this is a massive problem. How do we take this out of the hands of, a few incumbents and make it so this is a network that's owned and controlled by the masses, which is really where Bitcoin started. And then it also borrows other principles from Bitcoin, like the tokenomics, 21 million TAO that will ever be created, a similar halving schedule, and as close to a fair launch as you can get with a token, which is just so rare these days. I mean, you probably know that better than anyone, but I think that there's so many crypto networks and tokens that have amazing missions and problems that they're solving, and they're doing great work, but the way that the tokens are launched is really detrimental to people that do actually get bought into the network. And so all of those things really got me locked into, okay, this structurally and philosophically is absolutely in the right direction. And then the more that I started to investigate what's actually being built on Bittensor. So instead of incentivizing miners to solve a hash to secure the network like Bitcoin does, what Bittensor is doing is it's taking that same incentive structure that Bitcoin has trialed and proven, and it's incentivizing people to create useful AI products and the most performant AI models across all types of different applications. So I think it's a really brilliant use of something that is tried and tested and has been used to create the world's largest computer that can never be shut down in Bitcoin, and saying, okay, how do we incentivize the top AI and machine learning minds to create this decentralized AI network that can outperform anything else that we're seeing right now.
Well said. Talk to us about the decentralization aspect of it. Again, we can use the open AIs, we can use the Groks, there's really half a dozen players who pretty much own everything within the AI space. Whereas with Bittensor, you have multiple subnets. How many subnets are there? 120?
Yeah, there's 128 right now, or it's capped at 128. Yeah.
Right. So 128 subnets, which are pretty much these like massive, we'll call them AI nodes that keep the network running, which is quite decentralized. And most of these nodes are in different countries around the world. It's not just one company that has the final say over everything. Talk to us about the decentralized aspect of this, because I think that's a huge point that the people at home want to know more about.
So a couple different aspects. So the subnets, so I think of each subnet as an AI company effectively.
Yeah.
And each subnet is focused on a different AI problem. So there's subnets that are focused on creating ChatGPT style products like an LLM. There's subnets that are focused on doing text to video like Sora. There are subnets that are focused on decentralized compute, decentralized inference, really anything in the AI stack. And I think it's all merit based. And so the subnets that are performing the best are getting rewarded the most TAO, and the ones that are not performing are getting less TAO and they're getting deregistered. And so it's this really pure kind of open capitalistic system, which the result of which is that everybody's working their ass off on the network, and there's nobody that's getting rewarded TAO that's not contributing something useful. So you have these different subnets that are focused on specific tasks, and then you have miners, hundreds of miners on each subnet who are getting incentivized to try and solve whatever that specific subnet is focused on. So if it's, let's just go back to the ChatGPT example, like an LLM, there's a subnet that's focused on that, and all the miners are bringing their own models, training them, contributing data, all of these things to just try and create the best possible model. And if they're successful in doing that, they're going to get rewarded a lot of TAO. And so you have, instead of one company that is deciding, going back to the decentralization question, instead of having one company that's deciding, okay, these are the mandates for this model that we're creating, these are, our interests that we want to layer into this, it's bringing in engineers from all around the world that are contributing into this kind of open network, and really the highest performing model is the one that's getting rewarded the most.
Well said. I mean, there's so many things you can go into with TAO. There was the upgrade in February. I think that was called the dynamic upgrade or some part. You have the halving as well. I personally I don't want to say I'm bearish on the halving. I don't know if I fully, maybe you can help me with this, because this is actually one part. I get TAO. I'm pretty in touch with it. I understand a lot of it. I follow it. I'm on TAO Twitter. But the halving is one thing where I'm not 100% sure if it's a bullish event, similar to Bitcoin. Furthermore, with Bitcoin, I also think it could be the next halving, where I think a lot of the miners, unless, there's sort of that synergy where if the price doesn't match it, then maybe the miners don't have the incentives to actually keep mining it, right? So that's part of it as well. Is it fully the exact same as Bitcoin, right? Where you need that price to keep rising in order for the miners to stay incentivized? Or is there like a missing piece of the puzzle that I'm not understanding here?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a very important event for sure. The first halving that's coming up. And I also was unsure. I was feeling bearish on it initially because there's a lot of changes that have happened to the network recently. And that's sort of what I was thinking. I do think that has changed for me more recently, just doing a bit more kind of deep diving into the mechanics behind it, but then also seeing how much consumer driven demand there is for some of the top subnets. And I guess just to take a step back, really, Bittensor succeeds as, on its mission, the more that you have real world useful products that are created by the network. If nobody's actually paying for the products that are being created on these Bittensor subnets, then the network fails. And that still is a risk. I think it's a very small risk at this point because of how much we're seeing, like how much demand we're seeing for some of the products that are being created. But 3 of the top 5 subnets are doing a combined 20 million in ARR now.
Wow.
That's separate from any TAO emissions or anything like that. So that's products that have been created that have, real users, enterprise, consumer. And I think those types of pieces are showing that in conjunction also with these subnets being able to raise external capital in a kind of a more traditional like VC style model just shows that there's enough inflows there that, the subnets will be able to continue to grow. And then I think with the halving, it just comes back to a similar supply shock that we see with the Bitcoin halving, which I think will just result in price appreciation. And I think that, with less TAO going to miners, it just means that, less TAO is entering circulation, less can be sold. And that we're sort of at a max point of the amount of TAO emissions that are being sold through miners at this point. So I sort of look at it as like we're at a bottom in terms of TAO price now from that standpoint. So it'll be interesting to see what shakes out in December, but I think it's going to be exciting to see.
I love that. Mate, you're on a roll. Got to take a quick break. Give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show, PrimeXPT. When we get back, we are going to jump into xTAO. Until then, huge shout out PrimeXPT, longtime friends and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News podcast. We love the team at PrimeXPT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. Doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet. You can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. PrimeXBT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News podcast. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that's CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading accounts. Again, that's CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your trading accounts. All right, jumping back in. Let's get into xTAO. I've answered this question a million times for H12Q. You've probably answered this question a million times as well, but let's start. We'll stick with the elevator pitch theme. What exactly is xTAO? Define what a Bittensor treasury co is, and why should someone invest in xTAO versus TAO?
Mm-hmm. So when I started xTAO, it was prior to the wave of DATs, which I think has been really beneficial for the crypto industry, just to be clear. But initially, what I wanted to do was, so I had been in the Bittensor ecosystem for about a year and a half, and despite how bullish and excited I am about, or I was, and continue to be about Bittensor, what I noticed was that nobody can explain what Bittensor is. Like, a lot of the people that are the most involved in the ecosystem cannot explain what it is, or they get to such technical depth that you lose 90% of the people that I think we need to bring into this ecosystem. So it's really in a cult phase. And so to me, being able to take a nascent asset like this that has a huge vision and philosophical underpinning like Bitcoin, and be able to create something that's simple and digestible for people in a business model that they understand is really critical. It reminds me of, and really the inspiration was Hive and Hut 8 from 2017, 2018, being able to take an asset like Bitcoin that is this once in a lifetime asset, but a lot of people will never own directly, no matter what happens, and putting it into a business model that they understand. And so I think the Bitcoin miners, to me, that was the biggest thing that they did, or like one of the most important pieces is, a gold bug can now say, okay, I understand a gold mining company. Now I understand a Bitcoin mining company, and I can invest in this through my brokerage account. And so that was really kind of the inspiration for xTAO, because I think Bittensor is infinitely more complex than Bitcoin is. And it is at that stage in its evolution pre first halving, like Bitcoin. Bitcoin was post first halving when the first mining companies went public, but sort of similar timeline. And so with xTAO, so really holding TAO as a treasury asset is a key prong. We run one of the leading validators on the network, and so the validators on Bittensor, they are checking the miners' work and scoring the miners' work, and they get rewarded in TAO for doing that. And we're really working on growing that, and then I think there's really some other ecosystem opportunities that we're looking at that I think can be accretive to the company. But at the end of the day, it's really trying to accumulate as much TAO as we can, similar to the Hype company that you guys are working on, just trying to accumulate as much of the asset as we can and really create the most highly credible public vehicle for people to gain access to TAO through. And I think it's really, to me, that's really critical at this point, because there are so many public crypto companies now. Like, this isn't 2017, 2018, when there was just a handful. There are so many. And what I have realized is that a lot of people do not understand or don't have the time or interest to really look under the hood to see what they're buying when they're investing in these public companies. And so I think, just having like high integrity in terms of structure and team is really critical when you're stewarding an asset like these public companies are.
Well said. I'll throw in a couple thoughts there as well.
Please.
For the Canadians, guys, tax-free exposure. You want to buy TAO? You can go buy TAO with your BitBuy account, with your CoinSquare account. Heck, you could do it on with our friends at Wealthsimple, or you could be a degen and do it yourself, on chain kind of thing through a DEX. There's no tax breaks there. Zero, nada, across the board. If you have an RSP, if you have a TFSA, if you have a FHSA, for our American friends, this is our version of your Roth IRA, your 401k. It's tax-free. So you get tax-free exposure to a great crypto asset. Then you don't have to worry about the hodling it as well. The custody, xTAO, Karia, and the team take care of that. So those are some of the big value props of holding it on chain. And most of the time you get a multiplier. I'm not going to say it's always better, but you get to, take advantage of that MNAV as well, which just some nice little cookies to throw in the jar there. This is a question that I get asked a lot as well here, mates. And you said a line that I often say, the goal is to acquire as much of digital asset X as possible. In my case, it's hype. In your case, it's XTAO. The key is to acquire it in the least dilutive way possible. You guys just did a funding round. Congrats on that. It was not greasy. A lot of, I don't want to say our competitors, but a lot of the DATs have done some extremely greasy funding rounds, and it shows in their share price. There's a secret sauce to acquiring as much of your asset as possible in the least dilutive way possible. So I'll throw the ball over to your court, How do you sort of depict and decide, whether or not to take funding structure A, B, C in order to maximize the amount of TAO that you guys get?
Yeah. I love that we think about this in the exact same way. Because really at the end of the day, you can, I don't want to say always, but you can almost always raise capital. It just depends on what the structure looks like. And
no,
so
you can. It is always.
You can. Like, it is always. I guess, you're right. It is always. You can. And so I just think it's, to me, I guess, funny to see, but it's also, it's a huge problem because then you have companies that are willing to enter into really, really bad deals to raise money to buy the asset, which is good short term for, like, let's say that's with XTAO. If a company goes out and does a really poorly structured financing round that's predatory almost, they get money to buy XTAO, which is good for XTAO short term because there's more demand. But for the people that are investing, the retail investors or the investing public that's buying the stock, they don't really know, like, oh, there's all these warrants that are attached. There's, all these, like, preferential rights to these shares. There's all of these different things that a lot of the funds that are investing in some of these structures that, you're alluding to that's their business. Like they are so well versed in that, and they have that down to a T of how they're going to extract as much value as they can.
Yeah.
And so who ends up losing, I think, with those structures is the ecosystem, because you have people that heard about XTAO or heard about hype through a friend, and they're like, oh, this is so cool. Like, Matt's backing this or Karia is backing this. Like, I want to find a way to invest. And if the vehicle that they're investing in has some of these structures in place, they're going to get wrecked. That's just the reality. There's no, it's just math. And so I think it's really problematic. So I guess coming back to your question of how do you determine when to raise capital, I think there's a lot of different dynamics, but to me, the more important question is actually who you're raising capital from. And I think that getting, with a lot of these ecosystems, there's a lot of really long-term, high conviction holders of the asset or participants that are, like, kind of around the table. And I think those are really good people to get involved, especially with more early stage assets like XTAO versus trying to get hedge fund capital in and, acquire the asset at any cost. Cause I think, not to say that won't work in different ways, and there are some positives to that, but I think it's, in terms of, from a shareholder perspective, I think it creates more issues than it solves.
Well said there. Truly a big problem that I think we will see with a lot of DATs. Guys, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If someone raises, 500 milli, usually the person who gave you that 500 milli is probably going to have the upper hand most of the time, if not all of the time. Just a friendly FYI. We'll leave it at that. Anything, we are getting tight for time. Anything else to look forward to, mates, with xTAO? Any new, again, it's a public company. Normally when I ask a private company, just strict crypto, non-public markets guests, and I say, hey, any fun shit popping off soon, they can give me a long list of things that are coming out over the next couple of months. Unfortunately, we cannot do that. So maybe is there anything to look forward to, maybe with xTAO or just XTAO itself over the next couple of weeks and months?
Yeah, I think right now is just a super exciting time for XTAO, seeing the bounce back after the big market sell-off.
Yeah.
Not all alts have bounced back in a very significant way, but XTAO definitely has. I think it just shows that there's more, like, fundamentals behind this, and there's a lot that's building in the ecosystem. So I think it's going to be really exciting next, few weeks for Bittensor and for xTAO.
I love that. Before you let us go, please let us know where we can find you personally and, of course, xTAO online and on socials.
Yeah. xTAO is xTAO HQ on Twitter, and I am Samaroo 00 on Twitter, or X, I should say. Man, that's I'm really dating myself here.
Samaroo 007. Samaroo 00, I love it. Folks, what an episode with Karia Samaroo, founder and former CEO of WonderFi, and of course running xTAO. Big fan of what him and the team are doing over at xTAO. Do go check them out. We will include everything in the show notes. If you guys enjoyed this one, and I hope you did, please do subscribe, hammer that like button. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking to the team, love you guys. Jed, you keep crushing it. And back to the listeners, keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love you guys. Thanks for tuning in as always, and we will see you on the next one. Ciao.